You know how people always talk about having that one best friend? The ride or die. The one who's been there through every season, every heartbreak, every bad haircut. For me, that was Lexi. We met in year 2 when I dropped my juice box on the carpet during story time and started to cry. The teacher was annoyed and the other kids laughed. But Lexi sat next to me, handed me her napkin and said, "It's just juice, not your whole life." That was the beginning of our forever. Lexi was quiet, gentle, soft-spoken. I was the one who laughed too loud, wore shiny lip gloss by year 6, and somehow always had a circle of boys trailing behind me. I didn't ask for the attention, it just happened. Teachers called me charismatic. Lexi called me a walking hair commercial. It never made me feel better than her. If anything, I envied her peace. Where I lived in chaos, boys, drama, eyes always watching, Lexi lived in calm. She was the type of girl who journaled before bed, never failed to text back, and remembered your Nan's birthday, even if she'd never met her. We stayed inseparable through high school. I had my moments, parties, flings, heartbreaks that felt like the end of the world, but Lexi never judged. She just handed me tissues, a glass of wine, and told me I deserved better. Then university came, and we finally had to split. I went off to London. Lexi stayed in our hometown, working odd jobs and caring for her mum. Still, she visited every holiday, every birthday, every time I called crying over coursework or some guy who ghosted me. And then I met Stephen. He wasn't loud. He didn't try to impress me with flashy gestures. He was kind, solid, the kind of man who opened doors, remembered my coffee order, and looked at me like I mattered. After the whirlwind of attention I was used to, his steadiness was a balm. We met at a uni event. He was studying engineering. I was in communications. He offered to walk me home that night. I let him. He made me laugh about how he was allergic to cats, but had adopted one anyway because he found it shivering in the rain. I told him he was a walking green flag. He blushed. Within a year, we were living together. 2 years later, he proposed under the lights at Kew Gardens. Lexi helped me plan every detail of the wedding. She even caught my bouquet. By 28, I was married, living in a nice suburb, and had a beautiful baby girl named Ava. I had the life women were told to want: a good man, a healthy child, a lovely home. Lexi was still there too, every milestone. She cried harder than I did when Ava was born. Became a second mum, really. Always dropping by with little toys, offering to babysit, giving me space to nap or shower or just breathe. She never dated much. Said she was waiting for the kind of love I had. I used to feel bad sometimes, like I got the fairy tale and she was stuck on the sidelines. But fairy tales are tricky things. By the time Ava was in year 2 herself, Stephen and I had changed. Or maybe just grown apart. I don't know when exactly it happened. There wasn't a huge fight, no betrayal, just a slow fade. He started working longer hours. At first it made sense. He had a big promotion. I supported it, told him I was proud, but weeks turned into months. Dinners got quieter. Evenings became separate routines. He'd sit on the couch with his laptop. I'd scroll through my phone upstairs. There were no more spontaneous hugs, no good morning kisses, no compliments. I started wearing perfume again just to see if he'd notice. He didn't. I looked in the mirror and felt invisible. I still looked good. I knew that. People still turned their heads when I walked into a room. But the one man who used to make me feel like I was the sun no longer looked at me at all. Lexi had moved into a flat 10 minutes away by then. She said she wanted to be closer to Ava, but I think she sensed I needed her. We started meeting weekly. Coffee shops, brunch, walks in the park. I poured out my heart to her. She always listened, held my hand, never judged. "You're not crazy," she said once as I cried over my cappuccino. "He's the one who changed, not you." I remember the first time she said something that felt different. We were sitting in her flat, wine in hand, Ava sleeping in the next room. "You know," she said slowly, "if a man can't see the goddess in front of him, someone else will." I laughed it off, said I wasn't looking for anyone, but she kept going. "I'm serious, Sar. You light up rooms. You always have, and now he can't even look at you? That's not love. That's convenience." It stuck with me. For days, I told myself she was just being supportive, just lifting me up the way she always did. But the comments kept coming. "You don't deserve to feel unloved. He's letting you rot in that house. You're still young, you're still beautiful. Don't waste your glow on someone who won't even spark." It was subtle, just seeds. but they landed in soil that was already dry and cracked. One day, I admitted I'd gotten a compliment from a guy at the gym, just a harmless smile, a flirt. Lexi leaned in, eyes sharp. "Did it make you feel alive?" I didn't answer. At first I resisted, I really did. I loved Stephen, or at least the version of him I married. I kept hoping he'd come back to me, that we'd reconnect, that he'd take me away for a weekend, just the two of us, like we used to. But that never came. What did come was a message from a man I met at a charity fundraiser, a harmless back and forth that turned into long conversations. Compliments, then coffee. I told Lexi everything. She smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. "You're reclaiming your life. I didn't jump into bed with anyone. Not at first, but emotionally, I crossed lines. I started dressing up again, checking my phone more, smiling at texts, feeling wanted. Stephen didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't care. And Lexi encouraged every step. Just see where it goes. You've been a wife, a mother, a martyr. Be a woman again." I didn't know it then, but I was stepping into a trap I never saw coming. Because the one person I trusted most wasn't lifting me up. She was watching me fall. It started with a smile and a latte. I had just finished a meeting with Ava's school board. Nothing major, just another pointless chat about uniform policy, and ducked into a quiet cafe around the corner to clear my head. I didn't expect anything. I wasn't even wearing makeup that day. But then I saw him. Tall, dark hair with just enough scruff to make him look like he didn't try too hard, but still cared. He held the door open for me with a nod and a smile. "Flat white?" he guessed as I approached the counter. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You look like a flat white kind of woman," he said. I laughed. "You're oddly correct." He paid for my drink before I could protest. Told me his name was Aaron, that he worked nearby, that he wasn't trying to be a creep but had a weakness for smiles like mine. I told myself it was harmless, a compliment, a free coffee. But when I walked away, my cheeks were flushed in a way they hadn't been in years. And Aaron started showing up at the cafe every Thursday. Coincidence, he said. But we both knew better. He'd ask about Ava, about work, about life. He never overstepped. Not then. But every conversation left me breathless, seen. I told Lexi about him after the third week. Her eyes lit up. "That's exactly the kind of energy you deserve," she said. "You don't owe Stephen your misery." I told her I hadn't done anything wrong. She shrugged. "You don't need to do anything wrong to feel alive, Sarah. He already broke the vows when he stopped loving you." I should have pushed back, but it felt good. Lexi's approval, like she was finally on my side after months of loneliness. She started texting me before my cafe visits. "Wear the black blouse. That one makes your eyes pop." Or, "He'll love your hair pulled up, shows off your cheekbones." It was twisted, but I didn't see it yet. Aaron and I didn't kiss until week 7. We had lunch, sitting too close in a dim corner of a wine bar. I was laughing about a story from my uni days, and he just leaned in and kissed me mid-sentence. I froze, then kissed him back, then cried in the cab home. Lexi picked up the phone immediately. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Yes." "And no?" "You don't owe anyone your regret," she said. "He gave up on you first." That became her mantra. Anytime I cried, anytime I felt guilt, anytime I said I wanted to stop, she'd say it again. Aaron was never going to be more than an escape. I knew that. He was kind, yes, attentive, passionate. But I didn't love him. I loved the way he made me feel, like I mattered again. For 6 months it continued. Secret texts, hidden meetings. One night at a hotel I said was for a work conference. I hated lying. I hated myself, but I didn't stop. And all the while, Lexi kept encouraging me. "Stephen's never even asked where you are half the time. You think that's love? If he wanted you, he'd fight for you. He doesn't." But then the guilt came crashing in. I remember the night I ended it. I met Aaron at our usual spot. He brought flowers, told me he was falling for me. I smiled, but it felt wrong. I kissed him goodbye. And when I got in the car, I blocked his number. That night, I told Lexi it was over. "Good," she said. "You've had your closure. Now you can start over." "Should I tell Stephen?" I asked. She paused. "Do you want to hurt him?" "No, but he deserves to know." She sighed. "Then tell him, but don't expect him to understand." I never got the chance. 3 days later, Stephen was waiting in the kitchen when I came downstairs. He had a suitcase beside him. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. I sat, my heart pounding. "I know, Sarah, about the affair, about everything." I froze. "How? Does it matter?" he said. I know, and I want a divorce. He didn't shout, didn't cry. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. I've already spoken to a solicitor. I want you to move out. Ava stays here. I won't keep you from her, but I won't disrupt her life. I couldn't speak. You broke us, he said quietly, and I'm not going to fight for someone who gave up. I tried to explain, to apologize, to say it was a mistake, that I didn't love Aaron, that I wanted to fix it. He shook his head. The woman I married wouldn't have needed to be reminded she mattered. She always knew. Then he walked out of the room. That was the moment everything shifted. Stephen wasn't the broken, distracted man I'd grown used to. He was clear, focused, stronger than I'd ever seen him, the kind of strong that comes from knowing your worth, and I was the one left in the ruins. I called Lexi that night. He knows, I sobbed. He wants a divorce. He told me to move out. She was silent for a beat. Then she said, maybe it's for the best. You can start fresh. I didn't hear it then, the coldness, the calculation, but soon I would. I moved out on a Sunday. The house felt smaller as I packed. Stephen didn't speak to me unless it was about logistics, furniture, custody arrangements, lawyers. He was calm, polite, devastatingly distant. I cried every night in the guest room, knowing each box I sealed was another nail in the coffin of a life I once thought was unshakable. Ava stayed cheerful, almost too cheerful. I think she knew more than she let on. Children do. Lexi offered to help me pack. I told her no. Something about her presence felt suffocating now. Not quite wrong, but not quite right either. After I left, I stayed in a small rental flat near Ava's school. Lexi brought wine and cheap takeout the first night and curled up on the sofa next to me like it was any other breakup. You'll land on your feet, she said. You always do. I nodded, but something was fraying inside me. My instincts itched. Maybe it was the way she smiled a little too calmly, or how she didn't seem surprised that Stephen already knew. I chalked it up to stress, guilt, grief. Weeks passed. I visited Ava every weekend. Stephen kept everything cordial, civil even. We were two actors performing a routine for our daughter. Then came the necklace. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had a job interview in the city and realized mid-bus ride that I'd left the gold locket my mum gave me in my old jewelry box. It had been a good luck charm for years, and I wasn't ready to face a new life without it. Stephen hadn't mentioned being away, and Ava was at school. I figured it'd be fine to pop in and grab it quickly. I still had a key. I didn't text. I didn't knock. I walked in like I always had. It was quiet at first. The living room looked the same, my scent faintly lingering on the throw cushions. Then I heard it. Laughter. Upstairs. A woman's voice. Something cold bloomed in my chest. I thought, maybe Stephen had moved on. Maybe he was seeing someone. I had no right to be shocked. After all, I was the one who had broken us. But curiosity overruled caution. I crept up the stairs, heart hammering in my ears. The bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open and froze. Lexi, in my bed, wearing one of my silk robes. Stephen sitting up beside her, shirtless. The air was thick with the scent of sex and betrayal. I stood there, speechless, as Lexi looked over her shoulder and smirked. "Oh," she said lightly. "Didn't expect you this soon." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My lungs burned like I'd been punched. Stephen didn't even flinch. Lexi sat up, tucking the robe around her like a queen. "You left this, didn't you?" she asked, holding up my locket from the dresser. I took a step back. "How long?" Lexi tilted her head. "What does it matter?" Stephen finally spoke. "She was there for me. You were screwing my best friend while we were still married?" Lexi stood up. "I was listening to you every time you cried about how unhappy you were, every detail, every moment. You gave me the blueprint." I stared at her, the pieces snapping into place. She had encouraged me, pushed me, fed the fire, and then she'd handed Stephen the match. "You told him," I said, my voice hollow. "Of course I did," Lexi said. "He deserved the truth." She shrugged. "You were already halfway there. I just gave you the nudge." Stephen looked down as if ashamed, but not ashamed enough to stop this. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you do this to me?" Lexi's smile dropped. For the first time, her mask cracked. "You walked into every room like you owned it. People handed you their love and attention like it was a gift you were owed. And she stepped closer. "I waited. I watched. I loved him before you ever did, but you never noticed, did you?" Stephen flinched. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "You wanted my life." "No," she snapped. "I wanted a life that wasn't just a shadow of yours." My knees buckled slightly, but I held myself steady. "You betrayed me," I whispered. "You betrayed yourself," she said coldly. "I just took the pieces you dropped." There were no more words. I left the house without the necklace. I drove until I couldn't see through the tears, pulled over on the motorway, and screamed into my fists until my throat was raw. Months passed. Stephen and Lexi went public shortly after, photos of them at brunch, smiling, holding hands. Ava didn't understand why Auntie Lexi was suddenly around more than Mummy. I didn't fight for Stephen. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally saw what he had become instead. He wasn't the man I married, or maybe he never was. Maybe he was always the man who would sleep with my best friend. Lexi moved into the house. They painted the bedroom, took down the family portraits, changed Ava's curtains, replaced the sofa. I heard about all of it from Ava, who noticed every detail. I focused on rebuilding. I got the job. I moved to a better flat. I started therapy. I told the truth, to myself most of all. I had allowed Lexi too far into my life, had trusted her too deeply, had believed she only ever wanted to help. But sometimes envy doesn't scream. It whispers, it smiles, it hugs you while it sharpens the knife. The final time I saw her was at Ava's school recital. They sat together, holding hands, beaming. I took my seat alone. At intermission, Lexi approached me. "You look good," she said. "Better, actually." I smiled faintly. Betrayal will do that. Burns off the excess. She laughed, but her eyes didn't. "You were always strong, Sar. You'll bounce back." "I already did." She blinked. I leaned in. "You didn't win. You just settled." Then I walked away, and for the first time in years, I felt free.